This series includes content that may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Previously on Valley of Shadows.
It's an all-out manhunt for Jon Aujay. The 38-year-old went hiking Thursday in a rugged section of the Angeles National Forest known as Devil Punchbowl Park.
He says, there's a bunch of caves and stuff out here. You can pretty much disappear and nobody would ever find you.
I participated in that search until my feet were bloody. But day 6, they said, well, shut it down. Why are you shutting it down? Well, they say that they decided he committed suicide.
I kept contacting homicide and saying, something's wrong. I'm telling you, there's a problem.
There's something rotten in the woodpile, and it stinks, and I can smell it.
Deputy Jon Aujay disappeared while jogging in the Devil's Punchbowl on June 11, 1998. A couple weeks later, something tragic would also happen to his department-issued canine, Bosco. And there are more than a few parallels between what happened to the two. Bosco was a Belgian Malinois, which looks like a leaner version of a German Shepherd. Aujay got him as a puppy, trained him to do police work, and brought the dog home to live with him, his wife Deb, and their daughter Chloe. I've had my dog Stringer Bell for over a decade.
Hey, Stringer Bell. Hey, Stringer Bell. You wanna run around?
He's a protector and 85 pounds of emotional support.
You wanna run on the grass? You're gonna eat some grass.
My home life revolves around my dog, just as the Aujays did around Bosco. We can tell because the dog's front and center in dozens of family photos. Those pictures now belong to Aujay's captain, Mike Bauer, and he shares them with us.
Oh my gosh, look at this picture of Chloe and the dog.
Yeah, you can tell that they were raised together.
She's like squeezing the dog's neck, like their heads are pushed together like you would with like your best bud.
Chloe appears to be 3 or 4 in the photo. Her arms are barely able to reach around Bosco's neck, so she leans in to make it happen, smiling from ear to ear. Bosco looks annoyed like an older sibling would, which is essentially what he was. And there was another important Bosco memento. Bauer came across it while rifling through Aujay's patrol vehicle, just days after he was reported missing.
I found his tape recorder in the visor with tape in it. A little tape recorder like I have.
Bauer points to a micro cassette player, something he uses for audio interviews and personal memos.
And so I brought it in the office, I played it. And it's charming as hell.
The recording was a snapshot of Jon and Bosco's relationship. Bauer doesn't have it anymore, but he recaps it for us, and it's easy for me to imagine.
Let's go, ready? Let's go.
He was playing fetch somewhere in like a high school field or somewhere out there in Antelope Valley. He's throwing the ball to Bosco, and he's going, yeah, Bosco, and Bosco's barking, and they're doing a training exercise.
Good job. You tried so hard.
The connection canine cops have to their dogs is something special because they're together all the time, in the trenches, working during the day, and unwinding together at night.
When you talk about Jon's relationship with his dog, you have to understand he's a one-man unit, and that's his partner. And it's a bond, and it's a big deal because that dog saves that officer's life. The officer's in charge of the dog like a child.
Canine officers become so bonded to their dogs that when one of these animals passes away, the sheriff's department gives it a funeral, like it would a uniformed officer. An American flag is draped over the dog's casket. A military band plays taps. Mourners give eulogies. And riflemen send the dog off with a 21-gun salute. After Aujay vanished, Bauer hears that someone from the department retrieved Bosco from the Aujay home. Bauer's confused because he was the person overseeing the canine unit. So if someone was to give the order to bring in Bosco, it should have been him.
And I started searching for the dog. Where's the dog? I was told that dog died at the kennel during a vet exam, and most likely the dog had some sort of heart problem.
The LA Sheriff's Department tells Bauer and the press that Bosco was taken to a police kennel where he died of natural causes, that the dog stopped eating after Aujay disappeared.
And the dog may have died of a broken heart because its master was gone. That's the kind of sappy crap I was told at the time.
Years later, Bauer hears a different account from a friend of Aujay's.
She said, "It's a shame that dog had to be destroyed." I said, "Wait a minute. Bosco died in a vet exam from some sort of heart attack from missing his master."
So Bauer makes some phone calls and eventually reaches a deputy, who we're not going to name. And this deputy claims that he and a colleague killed Bosco. Bauer met him at a diner and recorded their conversation.
And he's going to bite all these people, and I got to kill him before he does. He says, "I shot that dog with my .25. I said, "In its kennel?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "You killed the dog?" He says, "Yeah." Boom, throw him in the dumpster. 20 cents.
The deputy says it cost them 20 cents, the price of a bullet, to take out Bosco. He says they did it because the dog was dangerous without Jon Aujay there to control it. Bosco should have been reassigned to another deputy. Or if the dog was a liability, it should have been properly euthanized.
You would expect a police organization that had ceremonies to honor their dogs to give a shit about that issue.
Instead of getting a police burial, Bosco was tossed in a dumpster behind the kennel where he was shot. Bauer's pissed, and he confronts the higher-ups at the LASD.
I said, "You guys, what happened to Bosco?" "Mike, I don't know, but will you just stop this? We all agreed that it was a suicide, and you should just let it go." "No, I'm not going to let it go."
The department says it makes no difference what happened to Bosco. Aujay died by suicide, so case closed. But if the LASD would lie about Bosco, what else might they be lying about? I'm Haley Fox.
I'm Betsy Shepard, and this is Valley of Shadows. Episode 2, An Unreasonable Act. The Devil's Punchbowl on June 11th, 1998. It's a scene we're going to keep returning to, because the story of what happened to Jon Aujay is like the sedimentary rock formations in the park. It builds up over time and changes shape as new layers are added. One of those layers comes from the last known person to talk to Aujay before his disappearance. Schoolteacher Dave Evanson took his 5th grade class on a field trip to the Devil's Punchbowl.
We ended up stopping right by the picnic tables.
The picnic tables.
Dave Evanson has Parkinson's disease, which causes him to slur his speech. So his wife, Dawn, is helping him communicate with us. At this point, she knows the story pretty well, because her husband has told it many times over the years, and he insists on telling it to us. Evanson's class was exiting the trail to go eat lunch when they ran into Aujay.
He was just starting up the trail.
Yeah,
and then the kids saw him and started firing questions because they recognized him from family night.
Every year, Jon Aujay volunteered at Family Night, a community event held at a local elementary school where Dave and Dawn Evanson both had worked. The roster of entertainers included Aujay and Bosco.
And Aujay became one of the stars of the show because he would bring Bosco and do demonstrations on what the dog could do.
The event took place 2 days before the class went to the Punchbowl. So when the students see Aujay in the park, they crowd around him like he's a celebrity. Or really, the owner of a celebrity.
Do you remember any of the questions that they asked him?
Where's Bosco?
Where's Bosco? The kids ask. Aujay says he had to leave the dog at home because he's here to train for an ultramarathon. Aujay took his time with the students and even turned the conversation into a teachable moment. telling them about the importance of wilderness safety. To me, that does not sound like someone who's going out to the woods to take his own life. But that's what the sheriff's department says Aujay did after he finished talking to these fifth graders. Evanson will never be convinced of that.
He was happy. He was full of life.
Full of life, happy, having fun talking to the kids.
So where is the sheriff's department drawing their suicide conclusion from? Is there some other evidence we don't know about? Well, if there is, the LASD sure isn't sharing it with us. They denied our public records request, saying the requested records are part of an ongoing and active criminal investigation and are therefore exempt from disclosure. An ongoing and active criminal investigation? This response does not make a lot of sense to me. Because Aujay disappeared about 30 years ago. The state of California issued a death certificate for him all the way back in 2003. Meanwhile, the department has stuck by its suicide ruling, and they've openly and actively discouraged retired Captain Mike Bauer's investigation. Lucky for us, Bauer hasn't let up. He spent decades looking into the Aujay case. His office is filled with handwritten notes and discs of recorded interviews, and he's collected internal documents from the sheriff's department, which he's agreed to share with us, including
confidential suicide report I somehow got hold of.
Bauer hands us a case file that's hundreds of pages long. It includes reports that span years of investigation into Aujay's disappearance. And it tells a story.
This was assigned to Homicide Bureau Missing Persons Unit. They were the ones who had to make the decision that this was a suicide.
The missing persons investigation began with the person who reported Jon Aujay missing, his wife, Debbie.
Then they began to get the feeling, well, this guy's got some sort of relationship problems. Maybe we better look at it.
Debbie tells detectives that she and her husband got into an argument before he took off for the Punchbowl, and that she can't find his off-duty gun.
They went out to her house and she said there's an empty holster on the workbench, but the 2 inches missing.
The department begins to speculate that Aujay may have taken the gun with him into the Devil's Punchbowl to use it on himself.
They then get psychological services involved in and find out about the marriage counseling the day before.
The day before Aujay disappeared, he and Debbie had gone to couples counseling with an LASD psychologist. By the end of the session, the therapist concluded the Aujays were incompatible and should separate. And the sheriff's department says that's what pushed Aujay over the edge. The final realization that he and Debbie were done.
When we ended, she said if you have decided to go through with the divorce, to come back to her and she would give us ideas on parenting skills for Chloe's sake.
This is an interview Bauer recorded with Debbie in 2015. He questions her at length about her marriage to Jon because it's the crux of the department's suicide narrative. In a nutshell, Debbie was a stay-at-home mom while Jon worked a lot. She liked to party. His version of fun was extreme running. She was full-figured with a bleach blonde perm. He was all muscle, topped off with a military crew cut. The report says that after 12 years of marriage, the couple drifted apart. They fought a lot, and as their fights intensified, Jon withdrew.
Okay, let me get to some characterizations that they wrote in the report. He was not verbally communicating with you, and he was getting more distant from you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Was he depressed?
Well, he had told the psychologist that he had been unhappy for 2 years.
With the marriage?
With the marriage.
Bauer is fact-checking the sheriff's report because it attributes a lot of its claims to Debbie's testimony. Supposed characterizations of her husband and their life together.
Okay, when you talked to Jon afterwards on the drive home, what was the conversation between the two of you about this experience with marriage counseling? What was Jon's attitude?
I sensed he was angry.
Do you think he was hopeful that this session was going to help save the marriage?
No.
And already, things aren't adding up. If Aujay had been unhappy with the marriage for 2 years and thought it was beyond repair, why would he suddenly snap? Well, the report quotes Debbie as saying that Aujay was psychotic.
That's kind of describing a person who's mentally ill.
I don't know if I said he was psychotic. I do remember saying that his eyes did not look right. I do remember saying that to them.
In what respect?
Just a real strong look in his eyes. Maybe his eyes looked intense.
There's a world of difference between intense-looking eyes and psychosis. But investigators say there were other indications that Aujay was suicidal. He was giving away his prized possessions, including a family heirloom, a gold necklace. And then right before he left for the Punchbowl, Aujay told Debbie to have a nice life. To detectives, that was Aujay saying his final goodbyes. In conclusion, the LASD report says, the likelihood of suicide is overwhelming and by far surpasses any of the other possibilities. I can see why the department considered the possibility of suicide, because it's clear that Aujay was going through a tough time. But to me, it's a big stretch to say the likelihood of suicide is overwhelming. Especially as I keep reading the report and find out that Aujay had big plans for his future, and that he wanted to spend it with his girlfriend.
Aujay had been seeing a 45-year-old woman named Vicky DeVita. She was a competitive ultramarathon runner, just like him, and she was the one Aujay gave the heirloom necklace to. Their relationship was a bit of an open secret, especially when she showed up at the Punchbowl searching for him, day after day. We can't ask DeVita what she thinks happened to Aujay because she died of cancer in 2010. But her statement to investigators reveals a rosier picture of the deputy. According to DeVita, she and Aujay met at a race in 1995. She was the more experienced runner and helped Aujay train for his ultramarathons. They bonded over their shared passion, and slowly they fell in love. But according to DeVita, the relationship wasn't sexual because Aujay wanted to wait until after he and his wife had officially separated. In letters to DeVita, Aujay called her his eternal love and shared poems by Walt Whitman and Emily Dickinson. And recently, Aujay had asked her to take an STD test so they could finally consummate their relationship. So Aujay was making moves. And DeVita says he was relieved that he and Debbie were splitting up because he was ready to start the next chapter of his life. Debbie seems to confirm all this, explaining that towards the end of their marriage, she and Aujay slept in different rooms, and that he'd begun to take photos and art off the walls of his bedroom.
He was telling Vicky that he was setting a certain time frame for him to make a decision of what he was going to do. Did you sense a move out was coming?
Yes. It appeared that he was going to move out.
Given this new information, Aujay sounds less like someone saying his final goodbyes and more like someone saying goodbye to a relationship that had already run its course. And it sheds new light on what Aujay may have meant the morning of June 11th when he told his wife Debbie to have a nice life.
What was your thought at the time when he said it? Did you think suicide at the time?
No, I didn't.
It was not a threat of suicide. Had he ever made a threat of suicide in the past? He was going to kill himself because of some problem you two were having?
No.
Never expressed it?
No.
Debbie paints a picture of Aujay's final days that looks very different from the sheriff's department's. In their report, it seems they've cherry-picked details to support their suicide thesis and ignore or downplay those that contradict it. So we keep digging through the LASD reports Bauer gives us to figure out how the department is connecting its dots. And we find a kind of personality profile they did on Aujay.
I feel like this has summed up so much of what we've read and heard about him into a punch list. Can I just read the bullet points?
Yeah.
Okay. Organized, responsible, punctual, regimented, committed, structured, disciplined.
There's a definite theme.
Did not believe in divorce or extramarital affairs. Lived by and often said death before dishonor. Occasionally read Bible.
I like that last line. Sounds like a real fun guy.
Aujay's code of ethics is a big part of why the sheriff's department says he couldn't live with himself, because he thought divorce and extramarital affairs were dishonorable. The LASD seems to be saying that Aujay's girlfriend wasn't a reason to keep on living. It was the reason he took his life, because he was consumed with guilt over his part in ruining his marriage. We try to follow this logic.
His motto was death before dishonor, which alone is extreme. But it's interesting to me that here he is in this position where he knows he can't stay with his wife, but emotionally he's not ready or willing to accept divorce. And then the next day he disappears.
Yeah, but if he's someone that sees giving up on a marriage as failure, as dishonorable, then he sure as shit thinks that killing himself and giving up on life is dishonorable. I'm just saying, it cuts both ways.
Our main takeaway from this personality profile and the rest of the Aujay report is that the suicide theory isn't based on hard facts. It's based on subjective accounts of Jon Aujay's behavior. Just like those rock faces in the Devil's Punchbowl, it's a matter of interpretation.
You'd have to say, how was he going to be dishonored?
We check in with Dave Rathbun. As Aujay's former partner, he was one of the few people who had insight into his personal life.
Divorce? That's dishonorable?
Even this 80-year-old cop thinks that's ridiculously puritanical.
I mean, might have been in 1893, but that was 100 years before this. So that's beyond a stretch. It's like science fiction or something, I think.
Rathbun got a divorce, which he says is pretty common for law enforcement officers.
My son even makes this joke. He's a lieutenant on the sheriff's department. And he said, yeah, my future ex-wife and I are going to go here and do this and do that. I said, oh, for crying out loud, don't say that. He said, yeah, the deputies will say that. They think it's funny. And I said, I don't know if I think it's funny having gone through a divorce.
Rathbun doesn't buy the whole death before dishonor explanation. And he feels pretty certain that Aujay would never take his own life, on account of his daughter Chloe.
If you got on the subject of Chloe, he glowed. Yeah, he glowed. And he went soft, like, wham, that fast. He loved her to death. He would talk about her all the time. Chloe this, Chloe that. He's going to disappear in the mountains and kill himself and leave her alone. Does that fit with death before dishonor? Not very well. It's pretty dishonorable to just abandon your 5-year-old daughter.
Debbie Aujay has her own doubts about the suicide theory.
It just causes confusion in me, that's all. Because I don't know what to believe.
There are more than a few details about Aujay's final days that just don't add up for her. Like what he did the morning of his disappearance.
You said he went to the gas station.
Yes, because when the bill came from the Shell credit card, I had noticed that he had gassed up on June 11th before going to the Punchbowl.
My gas tank is always hovering around empty. So the fact that Aujay took the time to stop at a gas station on his way to the Punchbowl strongly implies he hadn't planned on this being his last drive. And according to the missing persons report, Aujay put a sun shield on his dashboard to prevent his truck from overheating. It's another indication that Aujay was planning to return from his run and drive away from the Punchbowl.
I would hope the sheriff's department would investigate this. I just still want Jon to be found, or his remains.
There's another detail that throws a big wrench in the suicide theory. Remember that missing gun?
His holster was left on the workbench in the garage, and I've never found that small Smith & Wesson. They told me when he was missing, they didn't find any gun. They told me there was no gun in the truck. Then I started hearing some rumors that there was a gun in the truck.
This missing gun is one of the linchpins of the LASD's narrative. They say Aujay didn't usually take a gun with him while jogging. Therefore, he must have brought the firearm into the Punchbowl with suicidal intent. But it turns out the gun was not missing. Not at first, anyway.
Okay, so you were at Punchbowl. Tell me what you did when you got there and what you saw, and any other details that you think are important.
Bauer has been running down leads in the Aujay case for years. There are a lot of unanswered questions, but at the top of the list is the one about Aujay's phantom gun.
I see the truck, I run the plate. It is his truck.
Bauer is interviewing Randy Heberly. Heberly was an LASD deputy who worked patrol in the Antelope Valley, and he was one of the first officers to show up at the Punchbowl after Aujay was reported missing.
Look in the truck real quick with my flashlight. I checked the door, it was locked. I then looked closely in the truck. There's a little compartment, and I see the snub-nose, stainless steel, 5-shot revolver. That gun was in the truck.
Deputy Heberly calls his sergeant and tells him he's located Aujay's vehicle.
Do you remember telling the station in that cell phone call that you saw a gun in the truck?
Yes. I told them his gun is in the truck.
According to Heberly, Aujay left his gun in the vehicle, which means it could not have been used by him to end his life. We ask around and find out Deputy Heberly isn't the only one who remembers the gun. Sergeant Vince Burton confirms Heberly's account. He was one of the sergeants overseeing the Aujay search.
The deputy specifically said that his off-duty gun was in the car.
And it wasn't just one deputy.
There's a couple deputies that swear there was a gun there, and yet my lieutenant and I, at a later time, looked at all the records and everything. There's no indication that that gun was ever booked into evidence. It's not shown.
This seems like a major oversight in the investigation. And even more troubling, Burton says investigators didn't process the truck for any evidence.
Since it's not a murder, they're not going to process it. They're not going to impound it. If a missing person says, we'd like the car held because we think there's something suspicious, that's up to the detectives to make that call.
The missing persons detectives don't flag the truck for inspection. And so Aujay's gun disappears along with who knows what else.
You think that the gun may have gone missing between when those first officers arrived and before homicide got there?
That's very possible. Homicide interviewed me later, but we never talked about the gun, and the gun never came up.
That's weird, right? Homicide detectives make the case for suicide based in part on a missing gun. And yet, they don't seem to be that interested in finding the gun. We haven't found any records that show detectives even asked responding officers about it. There appears to be a lot of missteps in this investigation, starting from the beginning, when Aujay's truck wasn't combed for evidence. Then there's the department's decision to call off the search after less than a week. And the detectives' single-minded focus on the suicide theory, not to mention the way they punched up key witness statements from people like Debbie Aujay. After 6 months of reporting this story, we're feeling the weight and confusion of the case. We know there's one guy who gets it. We hope Mike Bauer can give us some perspective.
Bauer lives on a remote ranch in Idaho.
I've got to get my egg picker.
His lakeside property includes a home office, which he uses as a base camp for his work on the Aujay case, and wide open land for his dogs, horses, and ducks. Oh, the ducks.
Come on, girls. Let's go. Okay. Come on.
They have heated coops and kiddie pools to splash in, and the ducks' food is handmade by Bauer every day. He combines carrots, apples, corn, grapes, a bunch of stuff.
And sourdough bread, and the staler the better, because I put it through the blender and chop it up. I don't feed these animals anything I wouldn't eat.
The ducks seem to be the darlings of Bauer's farm, but all sorts of animals flock to him. Deer linger in the clearings. Bauer can tell them apart by their facial features. Wild turkeys congregate outside Bauer's home at the same time each morning, waiting for their breakfast. And his stable of horses includes a one-eyed fella named Quincy.
Come on, girls. Come
Watching
on.
Bauer interact with these animals, it's enlightening. It helps me understand why he reacted so strongly to Bosco's death, and why he's so invested in the Aujay case. Because the things he cares about deeply. About 10 years ago, Bauer had scheduled a meeting with Larry Lincoln, captain of the Homicide Bureau at the time of Aujay's disappearance. Bauer wanted to go over the problems with the missing persons investigation, how the detectives said there were no signs of foul play, but didn't seem to look very hard to find them.
Every supervisor dreads coming into work and finding a horrible situation thrown in their lap, and they have to decide, am I going to cover it up or am I going to face it head on and then stop it?
About a week before the two were scheduled to meet, Lincoln sent Bauer a text saying he had to cancel. Bauer recorded a voice memo of the message right after he got it, to add to his Aujay archive.
I'm going to tape Larry Lincoln's text this morning at just before 6 a.m. I worked with Jon, was involved in the search for him, and was in charge of the investigation into his disappearance. With all that, I can say with certainty that Jon and only Jon was responsible for his death. After 8 years at homicide, suicides caused me more grief than any murder. The bottom line, one cannot find reason in an unreasonable act. End of text.
Bauer doesn't just think the suicide narrative is false. He thinks it's reckless. It promotes bad police work. It tarnishes Aujay's reputation and causes immense pain to his loved ones. Processing his disappearance is one thing, but thinking Aujay killed himself and did it in a way that they'd never know how or why, that's a whole new level of anguish. And no one felt that more than his daughter, Chloe.
I said, I'm telling you, Chloe, don't believe it. Do not believe it. Your father did not abandon you. He was taken from you.
Over the years, Bauer developed a friendship with Chloe and Debbie, whose lives completely unraveled after Aujay's disappearance. Debbie struggled financially, toggling between part-time jobs and collecting unemployment. She sold her house and moved in with her parents. She eventually ended up living in a car in a parking lot not far from the house she once shared with Jon. And that's why Bauer now has so many of Aujay's things, because Debbie just didn't have a place to store them. And then there's Chloe. She was just 5 when she lost her dad. Then she lost her dog, and then her mom as Debbie drifted into homelessness. Chloe was shuffled around among relatives, but never found a stable home base. She dropped out of high school and cycled through a series of low-wage jobs while living with boyfriends or friends. Then in August of 2020, Bauer got a call from Debbie.
And she said, "Mike, we've lost our girl." That's all she said. "We've lost our girl."
At the age of 26, Chloe Aujay took her own life. Some might call that an unreasonable act, but I feel for her. Tragedy upended her childhood. She lost her sense of belonging and security after her dad disappeared. And the shadow of his alleged suicide followed her from place to place.
I told her that her father didn't abandon her. She wanted to believe that.
And this is why the Aujay case has become all-consuming for Bauer. Because the LA County Sheriff's Department, the institution he swore allegiance to for 33 years, has told a lie so big and so many times that the story has become its own type of bullet. It's wormed its way through time, destroying lives and racking up a number of casualties. And Bauer's been forced to simply watch the tragedy unfold.
If Jon Aujay didn't die by suicide, what happened to him? Throughout Bauer's investigation, he's heard a lot of stories about Aujay. But there's one that just keeps coming up from multiple witnesses. That Jon Aujay didn't take his own life. Someone else did.
Early on, I let the suicide theory sit at 50-50. As I've learned more and more, I'm at about 90-95 murder, 5 to 10% suicide.
He said, "Hey, Larry, I'm hearing shit on the street, man, that Aujay didn't commit suicide. He was murdered." He goes, "I'm hearing it from more than one person." Well, shouldn't you have maybe looked into that a little more?
They told our search teams on day one, Jon may have stumbled into a meth lab by accident. What happened to that idea?
This whole meth lab, it's just been a rumor I've heard for years. And I do wonder what's behind that.
We wonder what's behind that too, and why the sheriff's department didn't do more to investigate these tips. But it turns out there was a homicide detective who took it upon himself to find out what really happened.
All the time I've been an investigator, and I tell people this, even younger guys, this cop stuff is not like TV. You go with what makes common sense. Everything looks like this. Well, usually if it looks like that, that's what it is.
That's next time on Valley of Shadows.
If you have any information or tips related to the disappearance of Jon Aujay, please call 213-262-9889 or email shadows@pushkin.fm. Valley of Shadows is reported, written, and produced by us, Betsy Shepard and Haley Fox. Our editor is Diane Hodson. Our executive producers are Jacob Smith and Alexandra Garreton. Original music by Jake Gorski, Ray Lynch, Mike Jursich, and Hayden Gardner. Sound design by Jake Gorski. Fact-checking by Annika Robbins. Additional production support by Sonia Gerwit. And our show art was designed by Sean Carney and Betsy Shepard. Special thanks to Nick White for the show art photo. Additional thanks to Stringer Bell. Valley of Shadows is a production of Pushkin Industries. To find more Pushkin podcasts, listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. From Type 2 Fun, we're Betsy and Haley. See you next week.